Hello, everybody. Sorry, just trying to do the tweety tweets. Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited. So while we're just here, let me go over here and say hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I've got my book. I hope you've got your books as well. I've got notes and everything. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be great. So guys, how was the first chapter of The Lord of the Rings? You're going to need that sweater. It even has the poem of the ring on the sleeve and Sauron. Yeah. Where, please? I got it out of a Lord of the Rings loot crate. It was a very, very special Lord of the Rings series of loot crates. There were only 3 for each of the movies, and this was in one of them. Yeah. They're just making my thing. Looks good, a loot crate. I remember those. Hello, Smithereen and Jonathan. Be nice. Welcome, welcome. And Christopher Faithius, Trash Kitty. Oh my gosh, I miss so many of you people. I was not prepared for this. I'm so sorry. And also, Weil, KD. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Well, I just finished up this tweet. You can also pop into Discord if you like. We're gonna be doing full discussion, so if you want to, hop on into the Discord and join me. I'm currently deafened. But yeah, come join the general. We can discuss this if you want to. You can also just be here and listen. It's whatever you want. I really should have done this before I went live, but oh my gosh, I did not have time. I was doing research and reading all about Tolkien and The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings up until like 30 minutes ago. So I needed way more time to do prep. I'm so sorry. But other than the chapter, how are you guys doing? How was your weekend? Hi, Owl. Welcome. Alright, let me copy this. Copy. Yep. You just sent the first chapter 8 minutes ago. Yeah! Watching a movie with friends, so I won't be around for the club, but I want to pop in and say hi. Hi, Drayden! Thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate it. And chapter 1 was fun. It was so nice to get a larger depth of the 111th birthday prep and story. Yeah! Alright. Let me just do the Twitters as well. I did the Instagrams. Now I need to go gosh darn do the Twits as well. There we go. Cool. Now we can get into this. All right. A live podcast. Yes. All right. Let me turn my music down a little bit. Because it's loud in my ears. Probably not loud for you guys, but just in case. It's basically radio. I'll be lurking too. About to head out. Gonna put you on my car speakers. Hell yeah. Alright. I was just wanting to say hi since I haven't read the chapter. You might lurk a bit. No worries, of course. Everyone is free to be here in whatever format they would like to be. I'm just happy so you're even just here to listen. Alright. So, I guess if none of you want to be in Discord, that is also completely fine, but I am here if you want to join me. So I guess first, does anybody have any questions about the... Actually, no, I should do a summary first. Alright. A summary of the first chapter of The Lord of the Rings. And also, notes on the foreword and the prologue. Because there's a note on the text, and also a note on the second edition, and then the prologue, which talks about hobbitses, concerning hobbits. So, The Fellowship of the Ring was published on July 29th, 1954, and then not even a few months, like 4 months later, the second book, The Two Towers, was also published. And then they had to wait an entire year for the third book. Hello, Jonathan B. Nice, how are you?
Well, hello.
Hello, and it's a trash kitty. Oh my gosh, hello, everybody. So good to see you all. Hello. All right, hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Had no idea you were the judge, so oh, go pop in.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, my Discord isn't hearing you very well. You keep popping in and out.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's better that time, though.
Better that time? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sorry, my stream kit isn't working very well. Let me fix it. So we can see who's talking. Give me 1 second.
No pressure, no pressure.
All right. That should be working now, I think, maybe? It should be working now. There we go. All right, got that working. Hell yeah. All right. Alright, got my movie up and running, so if you guys are just watching the stream, there is now a delightful little movie that should be playing of just the Shire.
It looks beautiful.
Oh, I thank you. Alright, so let's get into what I was saying before I got so distracted by literally everything. Alright, so like I was saying, the first two books came out very close together to each other, about 4 months apart, and then everybody had to wait an entire year for the last part, which was The Return of the King. And apparently it was an awful year for everybody, because everyone wanted to know what the heck happened. Which, in today's world, that doesn't seem that odd to wait a year between book releases. However, The Lord of the Rings isn't actually a trilogy. It is one book, but broken up into different parts. Mostly for commercial reasons and for, selling reasons. So, another thing that Tolkien had to say after there were many printings of The Lord of the Rings after it got popular, especially in Britain, and then when it came to the US. So there were a whole bunch of printing errors that continually happened. And he had to address this with a giant foreword saying, explaining, if you had a text that said Elfin instead of Elven, then he apologizes sincerely. That was the people at the publishing press taking liberties with his work. As before this point, words like Elvish and Dwarvish were always with an F, so Elfish and Dwarfish, And Tolkien, as a linguist, hated it. So he made sure that any other copy that went out, that it had all of those typographical issues perfected. Let's see. What else do I have notes on here? And also, during that time, during the second printing, he added a whole bunch of little additions, as well as extensive revisions, and added the appendices, which is something that a lot of people really wanted, as they wanted more answers to what the heck was going on with the entire story. Before then, there wasn't an appendix to tell you about how to pronounce things, or all these names and places. And so during the second printing of The Lord of the Rings, he added that in. And that is well over some, like, I don't know, 500 pages maybe? No, not 500, like 100, 200 pages of just appendices. It is marvelous. So I'm just leafing through all of my my copy here, looking at them. And apparently, so even to now, the most typographically correct edition is the 3rd volume British hard copy. Alright, so that is the note on the text. Moving on to the foreword in the 2nd edition. The foreword was also added. And to give context as to what all of this is, oh, my voice level can go up a bit? Okay, I'm sorry. I will attempt to speak louder. Thank you, Baku. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm still nervous talking about all this stuff. So if I'm incorrect, please speak up and let me know. The heck, I stopped transmitting Discord, I'm sorry. Alright. Despite the fact that this is a mess, we're going forward all the same. So, forward to the 2nd edition. These books are linguistic in nature, and Tolkien was unsure anybody would actually like the work, since it was a story that grew in the telling of the creation of the Elvish language that he had written and was developing. So he had started this language way back into his childhood. He was making up this language called that he called was an Elvish language, and it's based on a whole bunch of different roots, lots of Finnish roots in there, and Old English. And because Tolkien was a professor at Oxford in linguistics, he decided that in order to make, like, the whole reason to have a language is for people to use it, and you need to have people to use the language. And what do people use with languages? Well, they tell stories. So, stories are the basis for language, basically. So, he decided to write the story of The Lord of the Rings, and the entire history of Middle-earth to go alongside his language and the history, and that eventually came to The Lord of the Rings, this tiny, tiny little slice of history. And this story is supposed to be read as though it is a history text. Not something like a history textbook, but more of a manuscript sort of retelling, kind of like how you would read Beowulf. It is, at points, a factual history, but there's also, like dragons and magic. But that doesn't contradict anything in the Beowulf story itself, only when we apply it to our world. So don't apply Lord of the Rings to our world, as it isn't. It's a separate, alternate reality. And, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this whole thing is... I'm sorry. So the story was written to fit the language that had already been created. Yeah. Alright. Moving forward. So after when The Lord of the Rings was first published, readers wanted to know after the publication of The Hobbit, readers wanted to learn more about the world. The Hobbit was written specifically for his children, and he wrote that before he wrote The Lord of the Rings. But he still had, he'd been writing and developing this world for a long time. And many people had written to him saying that they wanted more. They wanted to learn more about the hobbits and the world of, the hobbits. So he started writing The Lord of the Rings. And the key distinction between the two, or rather the bridge, is the One Ring. So where Bilbo, how he finds it and gets it to, a long-expected party, that is the bridge. The Lord of the Rings is not about Bilbo, though. It's about his son, or not son, sorry, his nephew that he adopted as his heir. It's about Frodo. And the entire first chapter is basically, we don't have any actual point of view character. Some argue that the point of view is actually of the Shire itself. As we kind of move along from, we first meet some hobbits in an inn talking about Bilbo and his peculiar ways. And after that, we take a jaunt over to see what Bilbo is doing. And then we go to the party. And then after the party, we go and have a little time with Frodo and Gandalf. And, sorry. What was I saying? I was saying, right, so since there's no point of view character, that first chapter is a good way of segueing from The Hobbit to the rest of the story of The Lord of the Rings. And so once we finish with A Long Expected Party, next week we'll be reading Chapter 2, Shadow of the Past. And Shadow of the Past is apparently the oldest part of the tale that Tolkien had written. So this is, it had been written prior to 1939, so it had been written prior to World War II. And Tolkien also wanted to state that he would have written it differently had World War II gone, or not, well, sorry, my notes here are saying, Tolkien would have written it differently after experiencing World War II. He would have written it that they, so basically, oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place here. Tolkien hates allegory. Let me also say that. He despises allegory as it puts the power of, basically the author is then in control of the story and how the reader interprets it, and that's why he hates allegory. Rather, he wants the reader to applicably read the text and apply it to their own lives instead of being told what it is. A good example of this is C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, which is an allegory to Christ, basically. Aslan is Christ, who is killed and then resurrected, etc., etc. There's no deeper meaning than that, whereas there is no allegory in The Lord of the Rings. At least none that he specifically and intentionally wanted to put in there. And also, please feel free to chime in if you guys want to say anything. You don't have to just be listening to me talk this whole time.
Oh, but I'm learning so much from you.
Okay.
I know, I feel the same way.
If you have any questions, please chime in, because I feel like I'm just rambling at this point, and I'm kind of nervous still. Okay. So, so if you have any questions about the allegory versus applicability, let me know. Otherwise, we will continue to move on. All right. So, a lot of people wrote to him asking specifically if The Lord of the Rings was an allegory for nuclear weapons, basically. If, the One Ring was an allegory for bombs, in a sense. And he fervently denies this, enough to write an entire foreword about how much he hates allegory and that no, that is not the case. So he would have written it differently after what happened in World War II. In fact, if it was allegorical, then the heroes of Middle-earth would have used the ring against Sauron. Sauron would have been enslaved and not destroyed. Barad-dûr would have been occupied. And as well, Saruman would have made his own ring of power. He would have found out all of the secrets and tried to get his own ring of power, which basically would then become the Cold War. So that's what would have happened if Tolkien wanted to be allegorical about it, but he is not. So he wanted to very specifically write that out and let everybody know. All right. Here's the quote that I wanted to say. So many confuse applicability with allegory. One resides in the freedom of the reader, and the other in the domination of the author. So that's why this is not an allegorical text. Hello! Never seen you. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Maps, I'm curious about how you'd be able to tell an allegory from a similarity or an analogy. Does it depend on the author's intent? I would say yes, it does depend on the author's intent, Never Say Neo. As, does anybody else have any, anything to say about that question there? That's a good question, actually.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a great question, but I actually don't know, so I'm just learning from you.
No worries. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Well, the other way to think of it, to spot allegory, is the themes present in the story that they are taking from is very... It's easy. I guess it's not easy to read, but you can feel it, I guess. Same thing like with the allegory that Aslan is Christ. The entire biblical story is laid out there in the Chronicles of Narnia. And I don't know, when I read it, I can feel that. Okay, I'm just putting it out there as a curiosity talking point. You just find it interesting. I do too, Never Seen You, and that is a good question. I apologize, I'm just, a little bit shaky. But yeah, it definitely is intent. There's always going to be parallels between fiction and reality because it's all coming from human perspective. Doesn't have to have a deeper meaning, but sometimes there is. And not saying that allegory is bad. I just want to say that. Allegory is not bad. It's a writing style, and it is a good use of a writing style. But Tolkien and some just don't use it. Alright. So we are going to move on to the foreword, or prologue, which is concerning hobbits. This entire section is mostly just discussion on, or rather discussion for those who haven't read The Hobbit. So it goes into details of the Hobbit's nature, etc. And also... did I already ask what everyone's impression on the first chapter or a favorite section? This is a good point, Panda Poopums. I think I did in the very beginning, but I was still quite flustered. So, hello, people. What was your impression on the first chapter, Trash Kitty? I know you typed something out, but would you like to say it again?
Sure. I actually really enjoyed the first chapter. I felt like I had a better depth of what was the 111th birthday, just because the only notion I had of Lord of the Rings beforehand was obviously the movies, and I'd been wanting to read the books for many, many years and just never really quite got around to it. And so I got to see a lot of the back end stuff, how Bilbo actually kind of planned everything, hired everyone, and got everything ready for it. And I thought that was really interesting. And like the different perspectives, what essentially, like you said, the Shire was showing and said, hey, what is he doing? Why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he hiring locally? Why is he getting everything like from an external source? And I just thought it was really interesting to take a look at that perspective from the Shire instead of just saying, oh, look, it's a birthday and we're moving on.
Yay! Thank you, Trash Kitty.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I know you said you just finished the chapter, so how was it?
Yes. Well, this is actually only my second time I've ever actually read this chapter, and I definitely picked up a lot more little details than I did my first time. Like, I really hadn't noticed that Bilbo and Frodo had the same birthday, like on the same day, on the 22nd of September.
Yeah.
And that's why they celebrated and they gave each other gifts. Like, I was just picking up so many little details I missed the first time around.
Hell yeah. And just a reminder, everybody, that you are more than welcome to come join the Discord if you're currently just in chat and would like to talk, or just listen. Feel free to do either. All right. Christopher, would you like anything? Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a huge Tolkien nerd, and
Hell yeah.
I really I can't really even count how many times I've read this book. So always going back to the first chapter, it just kind of feels like a warm like hug to me.
Oh my god, right?
I feel that way about most of the Fellowship of the Ring. It's just such a wonderful. I love the way that Tolkien kind of invites you into his world, and like you had mentioned before, it is a perfect gap between, kind of not the sweetness of The Hobbit, but a little bit younger of like the feel of The Hobbit into what the Lord of the Rings becomes, and it just kind of sets the tone for like this wonderful, beautiful like beginning of everything, and it explains everything so well without kind of throwing you into the action of it just yet. I'm a really, really big fan of this episode or this chapter.
Thank you so much. Yeah, completely agree, 100%. I would also add that the hobbits are such a good race of characters to put your main protagonist in, especially in a giant, huge world with thousands of years of history, as the hobbits have been kind of sequestered away in the Shire for like their entire existence, and they pay no mind to the outside world. So we, as the reader, kind of get to learn about the bigger world beyond the Shire's borders as we get through those chapters. We experience firsthand what Frodo does, which is a good way to learn about the world without being told. Like, the second chapter of The Lord of the Rings isn't, okay, lore dump history time. This is why hobbits don't wear shoes and why the elves are leaving Middle-earth. Like, we don't get that with Tolkien. We are slowly taught about Middle-earth and its history and customs through our main protagonists, who are hobbits. And they don't really know much about the outside world either.
That's actually like that's a super good point I've never thought of before, but you're completely right. Like it was really smart of him to, have us kind of follow along with characters that are learning too, because then it doesn't really alienate the reader. It kind of like, like you're learning with that's such a good point. I didn't think about that.
I cannot claim that idea as my own. I listened to about like 10 different lectures on Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings leading up to this book club. So if I seem like I'm just spouting off a whole bunch of random factoids, this is why. Because
No,
I listened to so many
all-knowing.
lectures.
Girl, just take it for yourself. Just be like, yeah, that was me.
No,
I
God,
don't
no.
know.
You've always had the knowledge. I don't know if you remember, but when I first found your channel, I will come in every single day and ask you a random question about
Oh,
Lord of the
that's
Rings.
true.
Yeah, that's actually how I started with you telling me to read it, and Christopher over here pushing me to read books. That's how I started reading them. So I've only been reading for like the past 4 months.
Aw. I'm so glad. Of course I remember Daywalker. And did anybody listen to the audio version? Or did you all read the text?
No, I have the audio version because I can only find the text versions in Spanish where I am right now, so I have the audio versions.
How was the first chapter for you with the audio? I absolutely love Rob Inglis. I find he's a fantastic narrator, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Oh, I loved it. It was very warming and calming. This is definitely a book you gotta sit down and just enjoy. It's not like a lot of fast-paced things. It's just something you just sit down and enjoy and take your time with it.
Hell yeah. All right, I'm gonna kind of pivot a little bit and go back to the prologue, which is concerning hobbits. I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable now. So, here are just some points if you are new to the Lord of the Rings and the hobbits. All right, so humans are closer to hobbits than elves and dwarves, which is interesting because you'd think humans might be closer to elves in some way, but apparently, we are much closer to hobbitses. All right, and this is why I brought that point up before about hobbits not having much history or knowledge about the world, Hobbit bookkeeping only began after they settled in the Shire, and this is like they've had thousands of years previously where they had never lived in the Shire, and there were actually 3 different groups of hobbits. There were the that's page 2 of my notes. There are the Harfoots, the Stores, and the Followhides, and these are the three different versions or flavors of hobbits. They moved westward like all other species. So this is an interesting little factoid that something that the elves, the dwarves, and the men all didn't have history of is when they first came to Middle Earth, they were basically awoken. This is a long time ago, but anyway, they all steadily marched west, and hobbits were no exception to that. Obviously, they didn't do it together, like not a bunch of elves, dwarves, and men just all clamoring together going west. They all did it differently at different times, but this is something they all did as species. So, they lived in the Greenwood, the Anduin, and the Misty Mountains, and they left due to the multiplying numbers of men. So their homes were basically being invaded, and hobbitses do not like big folk. They are very loud and clumsy, and hobbits find that they are often underfoot. So, the 3 flavors of hobbits. We have the Harfoots. They are smaller, darker skin, and they like to live in the highlands. The Fallowhides are taller, lighter, and they lived in the trees and woodlands. The Harfoots often dealt most with the dwarves, and they were the ones who moved west first. And they are also the most populous of the hobbits. So if you meet a hobbit, it's most likely a Fallowhide. A herd of hobbits riding piggyback on dwarves migrating west. Yes, Giant Daywalker, that is exactly what happened. Alright. So the Stores were less shy of men, and they moved west second. And they kind of stayed on the borders of Dunland, which is almost desert-esque-ish. Not really. As deserty as you can kind of get in this part of Middle-earth. And the Fallowhides were the northern branch, and most friendly with the elves. They were the best at language and song, and they preferred hunting over tilling. So the Tooks and the Bucklands were Fallowhides. So that's our friend Merry and Pippin. They were of the Fallowhides. The hobbits learned to write from the Dunedain, which were a race of men descended from Numenor. And so the legends of hobbits enter men's stories in the year 1601 of the Third Age. Like Oregon Trail, but Middle-earth. Yes, exactly. I was picturing a wagon trail, but with dwarves and elves. Perfect, yes. So it was first Marco and Blanco, who were 2 hobbit brothers. And they left Bree to find a home for the hobbits. A home of their own, without men involved, where they can be their own selves. And they got the permission of the King of Fornost to have that land. In exchange, they would upkeep the roads, the bridges, and they would also carry messages. Where is my page 3? Where's my page 4? There's page 4. And they remained out of contact with King Fornost for about 1,000 years or so. Later, there was a giant battle, and that's basically in the northern, basically north of the Shire was Fornost, and there was quite a large battle there. This is around the time of the Witch King of Angmar. And the hobbits actually sent like not cavalry, but like soldiers to go fight in that war. Although there are no records of this happening in any of the men's history, so who can say if that actually happened or not? So after the war, they became shut off from the rest of the world, after 1,000 years. I forgot about the outside world beyond their borders. All right.
Children one!
Thank you so much for the follow, La Paulina. I appreciate it. All right. Now that we are done with the forward and the prologue, let us head in to Chapter 1, A Long Expected Party. So, I guess we'll just start with a brief summary of what happened in the chapter. Does anybody want to volunteer to explain what happened? Or if not, I can definitely do so. I've just been talking a lot, so just want to let you guys have the chance.
I believe Christopher volunteers.
Christopher, what happens in Chapter 1?
Okay. Yep. Sure. So basically, chapter 1 talks a lot about Bilbo and his upcoming birthday, his 111st birthday, which he shares with Frodo. So it actually encompasses a lot more, though. So originally, when you first kind of enter the chapter, they do kind of give you a little bit of a background on Frodo. A little bit on Bilbo, but you kind of really quickly you get into this conversation with the Gaffer and a couple of the older hobbits at an inn, where they talk about how Frodo came to be living with Bilbo and kind of his lineages. They kind of set up this idea that not everybody in the Shire, not everybody in the area believes that Frodo should be with Bilbo or as his heir, as he's more of a Brandybuck than a Baggins. But then they go into the celebration. Gandalf comes through. This is gonna be a very generic. I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah,
but-
no, generic is good.
okay, party. So Gandalf comes through. They kind of set it up.
Aw,
Where
Anonymous, thank you so much
you
for
kind of
giving
know
me tier 1
something's going to be
subscription to
going on. You
Lalapina. I can
can
appreciate
kind of
it,
feel the
and also
restlessness
welcome,
of Bilbo.
Lalapina.
He's not
I
really
really
very
appreciate it.
down
How
to
are
be
you
there
doing today?
anymore. They talk about the extravagance of the party a lot and all of the people showing up. Bilbo does his excellent little speech that he does and disappears. And then the very end of the chapter is him kind of leaving. You get this really good conversation between him and Gandalf about his magic ring that's helped him kind of escape the party. And you do get kind of the sense that something else is going on. Reading it actually this time, it made me realize that, and maybe they did talk about it in the forward, but they mentioned Gollum early on and don't really kind of give a backstory on him. So I don't know if that was Tolkien kind of hoping that you had read The Hobbit, or if that was him kind of being like, ooh, who is this other character? But they put a little bit of an ominous twist onto
That'd
the
be very
ring.
cruel,
He
Waffle.
leaves, and then the very, very end of the chapter is Frodo kind of giving away or kind of carrying out Bilbo's will. And then it ends with Gandalf basically leaving and being like, I have some things I have to take care of, some answers, some questions I need answering. Take care of the ring. Don't really use it unless it's absolutely necessary. Keep it safe, keep it secret. And that's kind of where it ends.
That was a fantastic summary.
Yes, thank you so much for that summary.
Thanks, guys.
So yeah, like Christopher said, we first start our chapter with, oh my god, I put my bookmarks on the wrong page. That's Shadow of the Past. There we go. Book 1. So, this isn't necessarily a theme of this chapter, but it's a theme of the entire book. And this is something that I noticed when I was reading somebody else's read-through of The Lord of the Rings, and they were saying that Tolkien has a really good way of writing. It's not that it's simplistic, but it has a simple rhythm pattern where, like, not just in like words, like feeling like they're in a rhythm, but there's always a duality. Like as it says in the the third chapter, saying that it'll have to be paid for. It isn't natural and trouble will come of it. There's a negative. Someone has to pay for it. That is probably the most overreaching theme of the entire series. Is there are consequences to actions and somebody is going to have to pay for those actions. Frodo, in the end, pays basically the largest price he has to leave Middle Earth. He can't stay there anymore. So he takes that price of saving the world, basically, and he has to leave. Any thoughts? What do you guys feel about that as one of the themes of the Lord of the Rings?
I think that's pretty on point because in the first chapter, I feel like they really made a point to make sure to know that even though Frodo really loves Bilbo, he doesn't want to leave the Shire quite yet. And so the fact that he has to, in order to essentially, like you said, save the world, I think that's a pretty decent price to pay for someone that doesn't want to leave.
And it is such a bummer too, because I think that I think kind of like what was already said, it's such a bummer because it's such a burden on Frodo for something that really isn't his fault. And it's not even really Bilbo's fault, like he didn't, pick up this ring out of malice. He didn't cause this huge issue. But it is kind of yeah, you're right. Like an interesting theme of like, well, somebody has to pay, somebody has to do it, regardless of whether it's fair or not.
Cool. I'm glad you guys agree. All right, let me have a look at my notes. I kind of started writing these notes in a weird order, and then I tried to combine them into a good order, and then now I just got pages everywhere.
You're
All right. Sorry, just reading over my notes that I wrote while I was reading the story again. And a lot of these don't make sense just reading aloud. They make sense in my brain. So I guess something else that happens here after we're first learning about Bilbo and how he has such an inexhaustible wealth. Wow, I can't speak. Yeah, like you said, we're then introduced to Frodo through the lens of some hobbits over in the local pub, basically, talking gossip. And we learn that hobbits love gossip, even if they've heard the story many times over. We also learn that Frodo, the reason why he was adopted by Bilbo is because his parents tragically died in a boating accident. And of course, the hobbits have rumors that, oh, of course, it was Frodo's mother making, like, she jumped ship, basically, and his father went in after her. Or no, actually, she pulled him down and he took him with her and stuff like that. Because, hobbits love the rumor mill. So no one actually knows the real story about what happened, which is, again, another theme in this entire book. We don't actually know what's happening. Tolkien often writes from different perspectives, as though it is a history textbook, as though it wasn't just him writing this, as though it's been curated over hundreds of years and changed and written by different people, translated into other languages. And yeah. All right. Let's see, what else have I got? So, for the first time in 600 years, sightings of strange people and creatures started happening. So this is the first indication that something outside of the world isn't quite right. So we just hear, on the edges, the watch, the Hobbit watch. They've been hearing some stuff. Another thing that I have here is, oh wait, there's more. I need to read chat here. Oh my gosh. Have you ever read about the hero's journey? In how far in the hero's journey do you believe Tolkien went down in chapter 1? Do you think he stopped at a good place? That is an interesting question, Panda Poopums, in that chapter 1 really is it's a bridge between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Like I said before, there is no actual character that we have to be tied down to as the principal character Instead, we're given a whole bunch of different views, and we're not omniscient. We don't know what people are actually thinking. All right. So moving on, we now get Gandalf coming into the story here, bringing, of course, his fireworks. Gandalf being known for his fireworks.
The party man himself.
Yes. Sorry, just leafing through the pages here. I wrote so many notes, but honestly, we went over the summary of it, but now what do we do? All right. I'm fascinated by the hero's journey because it is the tool I use most when making D&D content. True Panaboofums, the hero's journey is the one that is used most often, and it is what, the hero of 1,000 faces? Yeah. And of course, Frodo and Bilbo are both heroes of 1,000 faces. They all have the temptation of the call. They resist. They have to move forward. There's the wise instructor, etc., etc. And that is both applicable to both Frodo and Bilbo, depending on different parts of where they are. Bilbo is an interesting fellow. He likes using humor a lot. Not only in his speech that he gave, also after he left, all of the parting gifts that he gave, like giving Lobelia all of his silver spoons with a note saying, well, you might as well take them because you have the rest of them anyway.
He's a savage.
That is the shadiest thing ever. I love it so much.
Me too.
Or giving, what was it, Otho? Gifting him his bookshelf without any books in it, saying,
Because he borrowed all the books and didn't ever return them. Yep.
"You're exploring many corners of Twitch. I've somehow landed here. Well, welcome, Sophia. Thank you so much. And hello, Jim Moko. How are you doing?" All right. Sorry, was saying hello to some new people. Hello, new people. Welcome to Middle Earth Book Club.
Chosen one!
Oh, Sophia Hex, thank you so much for the follow. What other? Yeah, I gotta say, that's probably one of my favorite parts of this chapter is Bilbo, not, like, we don't hear him saying this, but through his notes and Frodo observing, just the shenanigans that he put up to, giving all these wonderful gifts to his friends.
They are gifts, but a little backhanded slap while you're at it. Well, why not?
Right, like the convex mirror or something that he gave to a female hobbit that is way too focused on her own looks. So here, have a convex mirror.
Exactly.
I do want to talk briefly about Bilbo and the power that the ring has over him, or rather, at some points, the lack of power that it has over him. So, I think Bilbo is the only person, well, aside from Frodo, but Bilbo is the only person who acquired the ring through means that were not violent. He didn't kill anybody over it. He simply found it. And when the chance presented itself where he had the ring on and he had been chasing Gollum out of the tunnels, as Gollum was trying to find Bilbo, but Bilbo had the ring on, so he was hidden and invisible. He had a chance to kill Gollum right then and there, but the quote was, "But pity stayed his hand, and instead he jumped over Gollum and ran through the cave to the exit." And that is very important, I think, because I don't know, the ring's power never got to fully infect his mind, due to the fact that he never had a violent act with it, I guess.
He also really wasn't looking either. He just stumbled upon it. Look.
Yeah. So, when finally Gandalf is trying to convince Bilbo to leave the ring behind, at this point Gandalf doesn't know that this is the One Ring. He knows it's a magic ring. There are many lesser rings in Middle-earth. And Gandalf
That is
knows
true.
it's one of them, but he doesn't know which of these rings it is yet. So
Also, I did notice that Gandalf was afraid to like receive the ring himself. That's why he asked Bilbo to leave it on the mantle, and then he didn't want to be handed the ring himself because he was suspicious of it, right, from the
yes,
beginning.
he was very suspicious of it from the beginning.
Yeah.
He knew it was a magic ring and a ring of power, and magical rings have consequences. He knows this. But again, he doesn't know which one it is yet, and he won't for another something like 50 years, I think. He doesn't like next chapter we learn more about Frodo, but during this time break where Gandalf is away, he's off researching. And we don't learn that until later, but when he comes back to talk to Frodo, he discovers that actually, yeah, this is the One Ring. Oh my god.
Yep, we gotta deal with this now.
But yeah, so in the movie, this is something that I want to distinct. In the movie, Gandalf basically pressures and pesters and fights Bilbo to give up the ring, where in the book, it's a much gentler conversation. There's a lot more, there's slightly more humor involved, and the only time that Gandalf gets angry is when Bilbo basically up and calls him a thief.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, you... no, it wasn't even that. It was Bilbo reaches for his sword. That's what gets Gandalf to be upset, is Bilbo says, I think you're a thief, and then reaches for his sword, as if to fight him. And then, of course, Gandalf shows off his power being, please
He's
no.
like, excuse me?
But yeah, in the book, he is... Let me see if I can find the actual passage here. No, but I had to badger you, said Gandalf. I wanted the truth. It was important. Magic rings are, well, magical, and they are rare and curious. I was professionally interested in your ring, you might say, and I still am. I should like to know where it is, if you go wandering again. Also, I think you have had it quite long enough. You won't need it anymore, Bilbo, unless I am quite mistaken. Bilbo flushed, and there was an angry light in his eyes. His kindly face grew hard. Why not? He cried. And what business is it of yours, anyway? You know what I do with my own things. It is mine. I found it. It came to me. Yes, said Gandalf. But there's no need to get angry. If I am, it's your fault, said Bilbo. It is mine, I tell you. My own, my precious. Yes, my precious. The wizard's face remained grave and attentive, and only a flicker in his deep eyes showed that he was startled, and indeed alarmed. It has been called that before, he said, but not by you. But I say it now, and why not? Even if Gollum said the same once. It's not his now, it's mine. I shall keep it, I say. Gandalf stood up. He spoke sternly. You will be a fool if you do, Bilbo, he said. You make that clear with every word you say. It has got far too much hold on you. Let it go, and then you can do as you please, and be free. I'll do as I choose and go as I please, said Bilbo obstinately. Now, my dear hobbit, said Gandalf. All your long life we have been friends, and you owe me something. Come, do as you promised, give it up. Well, if you want my ring yourself, say so, cried Bilbo. But you won't get it. You won't get my precious. I tell you, his hand stayed to the hilt of his small sword. Gandalf's eyes flashed. It'll be my turn to get angry soon, he said. If you say that again, I shall, and you will see Gandalf the Grey uncloaked. He took a step towards the hobbit, and seemed to grow tall and menacing. His shadow filled the little room. Bilbo backed away to the wall, breathing hard. his hand clutching at his pocket. They stood for a while facing one another, and the air in the room tingled. Gandalf's eyes remained bent on the hobbit. Slowly, his hands relaxed and began to tremble. So that is the confrontation in the book, which is quite different from what we see in the movies. And I think that's important. In the movies, it seems like Gandalf forces Bilbo to leave it, when in the end, it is actually Bilbo's own decision to leave it. I've had a boobos and I've had a video. Do you guys have any thoughts on that passage versus what you might have seen in the movies if you have seen them?
Yeah, there is that. You're right. There is that kind of switch between the two. I think in the movies, I don't know if it was like an intention to kind of show more of the evil of the ring, but there is a lot more hostility between the two of them. And like you said, in the movie, basically Bilbo tries to sneak off with it. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm going to do it. You're totally fine." And he still tries to leave the house with the ring, and then at the very end decides to kind of like, because Gandalf asked to say like, "Hey, you need to leave it behind." He drops it on the floor. And I think that if, for the book, at least this way of telling it, where it's a little bit calmer, obviously they do have that one moment of like kind of hostility, but letting it be Bilbo's decision to leave it and not having such a huge issue and such a huge struggle with him letting go of it kind of better proves the resilience that hobbits or even just Bilbo and Frodo have to the power of the ring. I think it's told a little bit better this way. Because even in the movies, you know, right away you see that there's a struggle with trying to let this thing go. I think you have a little bit more hope for the hobbits in the book.
Yeah, I completely agree. Panda Poopums made an excellent recommendation, and that I should ask each person to take a few minutes to pick their favorite passages and then read them aloud. Would everybody be comfortable doing that?
As a first-time reader,
Yeah.
I think I'll pass on that one since I don't feel I have
You could
well
also-
enough knowledge.
You could also just tell me which passage you like the best and I can read it out for you.
I can't think of one right.
Okay,
The
no worries.
problem.
No worries.
I don't have the actual text on me because I'm using the audio version, so
Of
I can't
course.
really read it. But I really like the part where Bilbo was explaining how he felt on the inside, because everyone keeps saying that he's very well preserved, but on the inside he doesn't feel like that way.
Yes.
He feels like he says that he's very thinly spread like butter on bread. I think that's what he says.
Yes, he specifically says, I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread. That is a wonderful line, and I absolutely love it. Yes, fantastic choice. Christopher, do you have a favorite passage? You could also be looking it up right now, so no worries.
I'm so sorry. I am looking through it right now. Give me just
Yeah, take all the time you want.
Actually, you know what? So this isn't like necessarily like a super big passage, but something I really do love about Tolkien's writing and going along with like just the entire world that he's created. I love his use of poetry and music in
Oh,
these
I know.
books. So even just the little tiny, as Bilbo's leaving, as he's singing to himself, like the road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. All that little piece of text is just so pretty, and I really appreciated that he took the time to also give us like not lore, but just like, you know, music's such an important part of our life and poetry and art. And I really appreciated that he took the time to like do that in his texts as well.
And also, welcome, Les Vistage. I see you popped on in. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I had your volume down way low, so I apologize if you said something earlier and I didn't hear you.
Oh no, I just kind of jumped in and muted myself immediately.
Panda Poopums, they did not play music in the audio version, but the narrator, Rob Inglis, I believe he read all of the poems and songs out loud. And something
He did.
Something I do want to mention, before we move on, one second, trying to get my notes in order. I wanted to play you the Tolkien Ensemble's version of every song in the chapter that we come across. So the first one is going to be, of course, The Road Goes Ever On and On. So I'm going to share that with you guys in a moment. I love the Tolkien Ensemble. There are a group out of Denmark, I believe. I believe they're Danish. I could be completely wrong in that. And they have been Tolkien fanatics forever. So back in the 90s, they decided to make an album of all of the songs and put them to actual, like, music with, like, sheet music, lyrics, everything. It's wonderful. Anybody here also familiar with the Tolkien ensemble?
I am not.
I am
familiar
not,
with
but
it.
I'm very intrigued.
I'm right there with Christopher.
Where the heck is my 7th page notes? I got page 6. I got page 4, 5. Where the heck is my 7th page? There it is. All right. Oh, another important thing, just to note before we move on to that. So during the party, another tie back to The Hobbit, his and Frodo's birthday was also the anniversary of when Bilbo first arrived in Esgaroth, when he was a barrel rider. There's a little interesting tidbit.
Oh yeah.
So, and he was saying when at the party that the only thing he could say, because he was so cold and he had also caught a cold from being in the water, was "Dagu Berry Butch" to the people at Esgaroth for feeding and clothing them. Just a cute little note there.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
I had completely forgotten about that until you said it. I was like, oh yeah, such a good.
If I may,
Yeah.
I've been lurking on an alternate account for about 45 minutes, and one thing that you said a while ago, and I don't know if it was kind of during the conversation, I was transitioning from my phone to my computer, so I might have missed something. But I don't know if you mentioned you were talking about how how Bilbo is the only Hobbit who, well, and Frodo, or is the only being who's ever acquired the ring without having to kill for it.
Yep.
If I understood that correctly. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Bilbo also the only character, including Frodo, or Frodo didn't do this either, to essentially willingly give up the ring? I mean, he was kind of pushed a little bit from Gandalf, but all in all, he willingly gave up the ring.
Bilbo is actually the only being ever to give it up willingly. Frodo nearly did, but the only reason it fell from his hand was because Gollum bit his finger off, and the finger in the ring fell into the lava.
So I do also have to do a little side note. I don't know if we're counting him as a ring bearer, but the exception to that rule would have been Sam.
This is true. Sam, technically, as well. Thank you. Sorry I did not count him as a ring bearer. I really should.
Did Sam ever actually put it on? I don't think he did.
You don't have to put it on to be a ring bearer.
How long did he... Sorry, I've never read the books before, so I'm sure it's different. I know in the movies, in the extended versions, he did hold on to it, but for a very short period of time.
I also haven't read these in a while, so I can't actually say. I wish I could. But I believe he had it for a short time. Christopher, you're probably more up to date on the books.
So in the book, as generally in the book, more things take a little bit longer of a time than they do in the movie. That's obviously because movies are movies. I haven't gotten to the end of these books for a while either, to be honest with you. I want to say, I mean, he probably held it maybe for a couple of days, you know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He loses it because Shelob, you know, kind of does Frodo in, and then to make sure that he doesn't get it, Sam takes it from him and then, you know, has to go rescue Frodo. Sorry for spoilers ahead of time.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're going to be spoiling the whole thing, so.
Okay, great.
Sheila, that's the spider, right?
It is, yeah. So he willingly, like, you know, takes the ring, bears it for a good, I mean, you know, a significant amount of time, enough to go then get Frodo, and then willingly gives it back to Frodo. So I really don't know. I don't remember how long that is, but I would probably guess a couple of days, maybe?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Daywalker says he looked it up, and Sam carried the ring for 2 days.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Which, you know, For, lesser peoples than hobbits, 2 days is more than enough for the ring to take hold.
Oh, completely. Oh yeah.
I
yeah.
mean,
I mean,
Boromir never even held the ring, and he was
and he
succumbed
went
to
crazy.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to hear what you guys' opinions are on Boromir when he comes into play later on.
Oh, Boromir. Ugh,
I'm very excited for that.
what a tragic character.
The most tragic character.
Well, I don't know. Faramir might be even more tragic just
I'm
because.
not ready to talk about Faramir. Oh no.
But yeah, sorry, yes. It was only ever Bilbo and Sam who ever gave up the ring willingly, of their own volition. Every single other ring bearer was either killed or was forcibly taken from them. So let's see. We've got obviously the first ring bearer was Sauron. He had the ring cut from his hand, and Isildur took it. Isildur had it for a while, long while, and he was killed, and the ring was lost for a time. Smeagol and Deagol found the ring by chance, and were pretty much immediately enthralled by it. And Smeagol killed his cousin Deagol for the ring. And then, of course, we got Bilbo, who found the ring and did not murder or kill anyone for it, nor when he had the chance to, he did not kill Gollum either. And he gave it up willingly to Frodo, who lost it for a time. So then Sam had the ring, but gave it back very quickly. And then Frodo lost the ring to Gollum when Gollum bit his finger off, and then the ring was destroyed. So that is the entire history of the ring. In terms of
I have a
bearers.
question.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember how long Gollum held the ring for? I don't remember.
I believe it was for about, God, was it 600 years or something ridiculous like that?
It was something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it was like a good long while.
Because I know the ring itself was lost for 2,500 years. Or 1,500 years. And then I think Gollum, well, he got it, killed for it, and then I think he had it for somewhere between like 100 and 600 years. It might just be 200, but for some reason my mind says 6.
So Google is telling me 478 years, but again,
I'll take that.
I could be wrong, but that's a
Close
good
enough.
amount of time.
That's quite a bit of time. Yeah.
And of course, the ring bestows upon the wearer not only just invisibility, but also a naturally long life. As long as, you have the ring in your possession. You don't have to be constantly wearing it. All right. Les, did you have a favorite passage from this chapter?
I did. However, somebody else mentioned it. Sorry, I'm really bad with names. Someone else already
Oh, no worries.
already agreed with it. It was the
Hello, Yummy Rocks.
the
Welcome.
song Bilbo said when he was walking away from Gandalf, because
Yeah.
I actually as you know, I was listening to the audiobook. I actually rewound that and listened to it again and focused really hard on the words, and it's this is really cool how what he said not only it's not just for him or explaining kind of his scenario or what he's doing. It's the lyrics to the song are also kind of foreshadowing, well, not even foreshadowing, sorry, just paving the way for what's to come, because the same thing is, as we know, is kind of going to happen to Frodo a little more forcibly, but it's anyone can relate to it, because you just go down this path, you have an idea in your head, but once you get to the crossroads, nobody knows where they're truly going. They just you get caught in the ebb and flow of life.
Yeah. So I've got the Tolkien Ensemble, the old walking song pulled up on stream. I know all of you might not have that, so let me give you guys the link. And I'm just going to put it in general chat if you are currently not watching the stream. So there it is, but I'm going to play it for stream now. So this is the old walking song put to music by the Tolkien Ensemble.
Goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say. Goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet, and whither then I cannot say.
All right. Okay, that was the Token Ensembles, the old walking song. Ah, it gives me chills every time.
That was lovely. Oh my gosh.
So
That was
beautiful.
really
yeah,
good.
seriously.
Oh.
I'm glad you guys liked it. So there are so many more songs. I think their first album was like an hour or two of songs. So we're going to be doing every single one of them. Also, apologies if you can hear my puppy is barking in the background.
He has business to attend to as well.
Oh yes, she has much business. All right, so Panda Poopums also asked us if we had a least favorite passage or part of the chapter that we didn't like. And I think I'll go first in saying, I don't know if it's not that it's probably just my least favorite because I'm not quite sure how much it adds to the story. But after Bilbo has already left and Frodo is now the master of the house, there's this weird bit where Frodo and Merry have to basically kick out a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who are trying to punch holes and dig down into Bag End in search of treasure. Like, Bilbo had given away so much of his stuff, not only at his birthday party, but also all these gifts afterwards, with handwritten notes addressed to all these wonderful people. And some kids decide to go and, try to go treasure hunting and literally punch in walls. That's, literally one of the things that he wrote here. I'm trying to find the exact quote here. That's really my least favorite part of the text for this chapter.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I read that and I was just like, Bilbo gave so much, and Frodo's obviously pushing this through, but I was like, why are they breaking the house? Why are they just being ragamuffins out here?
And it's also, never mentioned again.
Exactly.
I'm also going to jump behind you guys with that one because that just drove me nuts. This happened in The Hobbit too, though. When he came back and they were basically ransacking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To be fair,
that's
he was gone for
unfortunate.
a year and everyone
That's
assumed he
true.
was dead.
That's very true, but it just gives me anxiety to hear about these people just in his house, wrecking it because they think that there's gold somewhere.
One of the other things to mention about the goodness of Bilbo, though, is it is specifically mentioned that he was very good to the hobbits that did not have a lot of money, and he gave excellent presents to them. Let's see, specifically... Sorry, I thought I had it. I'm still looking through this text. Let's see. Yes, the poorer hobbits, especially those of Bagshot Row, did very well. Old Gaffer Gamgee got 2 sacks of potatoes, a new spade, a woolen waistcoat, and a bottle of ointment for creaking joints. Old Rory Brandybuck, in return for much hospitality, got a dozen bottles of old wineyards, a strong red wine from South Farthang, and now quite mature as it had been laid down by Bilbo's father. Rory quite forgave Bilbo, and voted him a capital fellow after the first bottle. So it is specifically said that, despite all the wealth that he got from raiding the Dragon Mountain, he still cared about the little hobbits. Which I appreciate that Tolkien made mention that he specifically gave good gifts to the poor hobbits. Then we get some more interesting time with the Sackville Bagginses, and we hates them forever. The second heckin' Sackville Bagginses, and this is the first time that Frodo is tempted to put on the ring. I'm honestly not sure if he's saying this truthfully or if this is more humor. Gandalf takes it like he was serious, and he's like, "Don't you know? No, do not." But I was just thinking of it more like, "Oh man, Lobelia around, I was half a mind to put that ring on and disappear." So I'm not sure if I can say this is the first time he's actually been tempted, or if that was a joke on his part.
I mean, to be fair, I think any of us were near the Sackville Bagginses.
That's what I was.
A little.
I was
feel a
gonna say
little-
the same thing. Just from not knowing very much about it from beforehand and reading, I learned to not like the Sackville Baggins very much. They did not grow on me the way that I thought they might. But no.
No, they're not. They're not nice.
Nope. They
Well,
do not
isn't
grow on
most
me.
of the family from Bilbo like just very unlikable?
I'm not sure. The only unlikable hobbits that we really meet are honestly the Sackville Bagginses.
Yeah, I think it's more that Bilbo has the strongest disdain towards
Yes.
them and just doesn't really care too much for the rest of the family except for Frodo. That was the one that he seemed to have cared for the most, and which is why he heir and all that stuff.
And the reason why is because he saw that adventurous young spirit in Frodo
Mhm.
that he himself had. Frodo, among like amongst all the other hobbits in Hobbiton, besides Bilbo, was like the only one who cared about like maps and maybe a distant mountains one day. Everybody else was content to just swap gossip and not care anything about the outside world at all. Frodo at least kind of wanted to.
There was a slight interest that Frodo had.
And we also learned that that Bilbo told Frodo what actually happened out when he was getting the ring. Because it is said that Bilbo put an alternate truth in his Red Book of the West Marsh, the story that he published about his time in There and Back Again. And the story he put there was that no, I didn't take the ring. I won it in a game. It was Gollum kept calling it his birthday present, and he traded that willingly, definitely. So that's the story that all the other hobbits know, and the only people who know the truth are Gandalf, Frodo, and I believe later Sam. That there was a little bit of trickery by Bilbo to get the ring. Specifically, the "what have I got in my pockets" is. I mean, that's not a riddle.
I was gonna say it's more of a question, but it passed for.
And what the official rule people who oversee riddles? They were like, well, Gollum accepted the rules, and also got 3 guesses, so therefore it's legal. It's like, what?
Yeah, I was reading that part and I was just like, wait, what? What? Okay.
All right, and then Gandalf continues to tell Frodo that he's going to go away for a while, but also to look for him at the most unexpected times because he could be back at any moment. And I love the last paragraph that we have, so I'm just going to read it out here. Frodo saw him to the door. He gave a final wave of his hand and walked off at a surprising pace. But Frodo thought the old wizard looked unusually bent, almost as if he was carrying a great weight. The evening was closing in, and his cloaked figure quickly vanished into the twilight. Frodo did not see him again for some time. Or for a long time, rather. Sorry. It's just such a good final paragraph. And what I also like is you still get the duality of things. So you get evening, you get twilight, you have a cloaked figure against the sky, and then more negative with the wizard looked unusually bent. So just the entire, I don't know, I wish I was better at explaining words. Gosh, I love this whole thing.
Would have to agree. I think Tolkien does a really good job at just like having such a richness in his words and his language that you really get the full picture, even in that tiny little paragraph. Like you can exactly see in your mind exactly what he's trying to say.
And also not that, it's not like he's using grandiose words with lots of meaning, using very, very simple words, but they convey the meaning so well. Like
Absolutely.
you don't have to have, a few college degrees to read this and understand it.
Right, yeah.
I know a lot of people give Tolkien flack for, describing the side of a hill for 3 paragraphs, but it's not in difficult language. It just feels tedious sometimes, but it is, I don't know. It's not difficult to read. It's just in its tedium sometimes.
Actually, that's funny that you say that because, John, not to like put you on the spot here, but if I remember when you first started reading this a couple months ago, you found it kind of difficult to follow Tolkien because he did just sometimes go on little tangents about what things looked like. Am I right about that? Or like, if that's true, did you find it easier reading it the second time?
Well, the thing is, I'm so used to like reading audiobooks while I'm working out or reading, and I couldn't really concentrate on when he was describing certain things, so I had to learn how to slow down and take in the words for Lord of the Rings.
That's fair. I don't think I'd be able to do other things and listen to the audiobook either. You just kind of have to soak in the words. The other thing I wanted to mention specifically about the language is... I had a point and then it slipped from my head. 1 second. Oh yes, like the describing nature of everything, and why sometimes it seems like things are way overly described. And apparently this is a very specific writing style that was prevalent in the 19th century. So this is when, Tolkien was growing up as a kid in the 19th. No, never mind, I'm silly. Anyway, it's an older style of writing where if you're going to be a bestseller, you have to use this long, detailed, explaining everything in vast detail, because books were often written for the wealthy people who had, maybe they've only ever lived in London, and now they're reading a story about someone with a boathouse on the American River somewhere. So they expect and want that long form, give me detail of everything. Whereas today, we don't need that, as we have, like film and stuff. We have television. We have things that give us immediate understanding of what something is. We don't need to be told about the inside of a log cabin. Most of us know what that looks like, and if we don't, we can Google it. So that's a writing style that went out of fashion by the time Tolkien's books were published. But he liked that old plotting style. He liked plodding along.
Makes a lot of sense. I know when I read, I usually tend to kind of like, I say disconnect from reality, so I try to like immerse myself into the book, and that's something that I realized that with all the extra descriptions, I kind of already knew what I was supposed to be looking for and what the scenery might look like, but it was further detailed, and I was just like, okay, kind of already have a good idea about it, but let's get to the juicier, get to a little bit more story. And so that's something that I definitely had to adjust for when I was starting to read the...
Yep, it's plodding along at its own pace, and it is definitely not a rush. Like, a lot of books are action building on action towards a great climax, and yet, for Tolkien, it is quite the opposite. In every chapter, you're going to have that same arc that most stories do. But he does it in, I don't know, lots of books they hit the ground running at a 10 and they keep up that pace to keep your attention for the entire time, knowing that if you start to get bored, there's so many other things you could be doing. But yeah, with Lord of the Rings, he does what he wants. And again, it goes back to the very beginning of this whole thing. He wrote this to explain his language. So he's very deliberate in what language he uses to describe the world about the language he made. It doesn't have to be big action. It's a story about the people and the history and the world that created the Elvish language. I don't know. I just find that neat.
I would agree. That is something really cool that he does. I love that he kind of marches to the own beat of his drum and he's like, you're going to listen to this. And again, he's got that's not really much of an answer, but I just agree. I think it's great.
His closest friends, the other groups, the other people in the Inklings group that he had when he was in Oxford, all of them said, look, there's no hope anyone's going to read this. That was specifically about the history of Middle-earth, specifically like the Silmarillion and stuff. So then he pivoted and wrote The Lord of the Rings, and he looked for that connection between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and that was The Ring. And then later he was able to publish The Silmarillion, and look, people read it.
Which
People
I actually-
enjoyed it.
Lots of
love-
people read it.
I'm rereading it right now. It's so interesting.
Oh, I know.
It's on my list.
Like, the Silmarillion tells a story much more like a Bible or a religious text, whereas The Lord of the Rings reads much more, like I said before, like a history book, one that has been passed down through generations and revised, and copies were made, some were burned, others were no longer able to be read, so other parts were transcribed. And, you know, when people suddenly break out into this amazing song and perfect iambic pentameter in a language that they apparently don't speak, it's because that was added later by a different author who had translated something and added it into the text. So that's how you have to read this book. You don't read it like everything actually really happened. You read it through the lens of imagining dozens, maybe hundreds of different people trying to make the text as accurate as possible for their time.
Absolutely. I think that's actually that you said that it's really cool because, you know, I think you talked about earlier how we don't really know the truth of everything because it has been passed down so long. And I love that he added these like little like addendums or like little whatever they're called, the little annotations at the bottom to just kind of further explain things. Like you're right, someone's reading it years later and they're not going to understand that. So here's a quick little note to say like this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but not even that. It just, those footnotes or whatever, they still fit in the in the story itself. Like those footnotes aren't just footnotes for us. They're footnotes for every single person who previously read through this manuscript, basically. Maybe it was added in by the last author. Maybe it's been added in for, you know, maybe it's been in there for the past dozen revisions. Hard to say. One of the other things that is often talked about in Lord of the Rings is this idea of broken references. So Tolkien will say something like, I'm stealing again from one of the lectures that I listened to, but he said Aragorn is with the hobbits and it's nighttime and they're coming up to Bree or something, and he says, like, only the cats of Queen Beruthiel could see in this night. She's never mentioned before, and is never mentioned since, but everybody in that situation understands that reference. It's us, the readers, who don't. And that's it makes the world seem much more alive. Nobody had to ask, who's Queen Beruthiel? And why does she have cats, Aragorn? They already know. It's us who don't know. And I like that not knowing. It just makes it feel so much more real. Because it's a culture that we're not a part of. We're reading about it. We're reading about a culture that we don't belong to, and we're reading about the experiences of those in that culture, reacting to something that is within their wheelhouse that they know about. So, of course, it'd be so weird if one of them just randomly said, explain this thing to me that I obviously should know.
It'd be super weird if they were like, oh, that's right, this thing, that da-da-da-da-da, like a little bit extra info that obviously they're not going to. That's actually super cool. I do like that.
Yeah, and he does it for everything, and I love it.
Yeah.
The only time he breaks from that is when the point of view character of the chapter doesn't know something, but it makes sense for them not to know something. So when they ask questions, they are learning at the exact same time that we are learning. So it feels so much more natural. And of course, the person explaining things often is Gandalf, and Gandalf likes to go on rambles, he likes to hide the truth, he likes to talk in riddles. So sometimes the answers we get aren't even really true, or maybe they're kind of hidden. So it's, I don't know. Heck. I love these books.
Me too, girl. I feel you.
All right, so I think that's about all we have in terms of the first chapter. Does anybody have any other remarks that they like to say? Anything, any questions they had, any passages that sparked their interest? Anything at all?
I have one little part that actually got, as I have mentioned before, I've never actually read the books before, so this is my first time reading through. And there's a part where they actually describe Gandalf, and they describe his hat being blue.
Yes.
And it threw me for a loop. I was just like, excuse me, I remember the hat being gray. Why did they not keep it blue in the movie?
I don't know.
It
It's one of my pet peeves as well. He has a
It
great
now
cloak,
bugs me forever.
blue hat, and a silver scarf.
Exactly. And I'm just like, why didn't they keep the blue hat? I would have loved to have kept the blue hat.
And gosh darn, his eyebrows are supposed to go beyond the brim of his
Beyond
hat.
the brim of his hat,
I was
and it
just gonna
doesn't.
say his eyebrows.
Gandalf needs some work.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they don't literally go beyond the brim of his hat. It's just a good way to explain.
An
how bushy his brows
exaggeration
are.
saying they had really long. Yeah. But the hat really, I was just like, why didn't they just keep it? It's something so small that I think wouldn't have made much of a difference. Gandalf the Grey just has a blue hat, but they changed it. I just thought that was it.
That's actually a good point. Are there any other bits from the first chapter that differ from the movies that you thought was either, it could be either good or bad? Well, like one of my favorite parts from the movie is during the party scene where Bilbo is sitting down talking to this group of tiny hobbits, explaining how when he and the dwarves encountered the trolls for the first time, how they wanted to, they were debating about which way to cook the hobbits, or to cook the dwarves, and one of them said, "Oh, we should sit on them and squash them into jelly." And you see all the little hobbits reacting to this. Obviously, they've heard this hundreds of times before, but they still love it. And just that part of the movie is probably one of my favorites. And that differs completely from the book. We don't have that at all.
Nope, just gossip.
I like the how in the book Pippin and Merry are described very differently at the very beginning. Like they're not causing trouble at the party. They're not. It almost seems like, well, it's pretty prevalent in the book that Frodo is actually closer to Merry and Pippin than he is even Sam.
I
At least at
actually,
that point.
I'm just going to agree with that because I love that so much that like Mary's with him at Bag End trying to help him sort through things, and then like later
They're related, right?
they're related, and
and-
they never really talk about it in the movie. And like it's clearly
Yeah.
such an important like relationship specifically between him and Mary, and that like I would just I completely agree. I love that they kind of included them more.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Did we actually meet Pippin at all in the first chapter?
No, in the first
No,
chapter, I don't
just
think
No,
it
I
was.
don't think we did.
Yeah, just Mary for now.
They talked about him a little bit, but we didn't actually meet him.
I'll also say that I like when Mary and steal the firework. I
Yeah.
thought that was very cute in the movie, but
That
definitely
was-
not what happened in the book.
No, that was heckin' adorable.
I did like part in the book where they're trying to insult Frodo by saying he's not a Baggins, that he's a Brandy Buck, and then Mary says, "Well, that should be a compliment."
Oh yeah, that's a good part too.
That is very good. Any other either appreciations that from where the movie differs from the books? Or maybe non-appreciations, parts you didn't like. Anonymous, thank you so much for gifting a tier 1 subscription to
for
Jackie
me.
Did That Thing. Thank you so much.
I think that's
All right. Anybody have any closing remarks?
Can't wait for next week.
Maple is
I
the
know.
greatest, and please make sure you support her at
Aw.
all costs.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yes.
I'm very excited to read the next chapter, A Shadow of the Past. As Tolkien said, A Shadow of the Past is the oldest bit of writing in his Lord of the Rings mythos. So this is the oldest bit. So I'm very excited to. I mean, obviously it's been updated. The words have been made to fit with the rest of the text, but man, wouldn't it be so cool to see the manuscript, like the first bit of writing that Tolkien did for the Lord of the Rings, and it's this chapter.
I would die.
That would be so cool.
I would
That would be
kill.
amazing.
I'll be so sad not to see more Bilbo for a long time. I know, Warp Waffle. I know. Oh,
yeah, we've got a bit.
Oh, yeah. One of my heckin' note pages here, I had a whole bunch of questions that I thought of that I wanted to ask. One of them was, by the way, who were those dwarves?
We have the unnamed dwarves that are helping
Oh.
Bilbo
Yeah.
like travel. I was
Yeah.
like, who are they?
Like, we don't get anything from them. And also there were dwarves helping set up the party as well. Like, we don't
Yep.
get anything. Like, were these dwarves that just... Who are they? Obviously-
I remember they were just
enjoyed that
hired.
touch, though. I really, really did.
Sorry, what's
Yeah, I
that,
think
Lex?
they.
I said I really enjoyed that touch, though. I really did. Because it just kind of added more depth to the fact that The Hobbit happened at all. Instead of just having. I mean, clearly The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are one story. It's, we all know that. But, at least as far as the movies are portrayed as they could potentially be just single, like their own thing, their own entity. But the book did a really good job of tying in a little bit of The Hobbit right at the very beginning by mentioning dwarves being in there helping out, as well as dwarves passing through and just being a part of everything.
Also, it looks like we might have an explanation for this. Warp Waffle says, I have heard that Tolkien had originally named them as a relation of Thorin's company, but he later removed their names. That's interesting. That's so cool.
That's kind of what I assumed it might have been, just because
Yeah.
what other dwarves would have a connection specifically with hobbits besides Thorin's company?
I mean,
I don't
Bilbo
know. That
is
was
one of
my assumption.
the only hobbits that we know of that have direct relations with dwarves. But also, it
Yeah.
has been 60 years since Smaug, so there could have been other dwarves that he met from that. He could have kept in contact with the surviving members through letters and writing. We don't know. All right. One of my other questions I had was, Bilbo, at age 11-1, apparently still lithe enough to go on foot to Rivendell after giving up the ring. just an interesting remark. Could you imagine an 11-1-year-old literally walking all the way to Rivendell?
Especially when he says that he feels his age, not necessarily that he looks it, but that he feels his age,
Yep.
but he's still willing to walk. I can get behind that.
And alone, no less. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he doesn't have the ring.
Oh
but
no,
we
he's
know
actually
that-
he's with two dwarves.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry, I did misspeak. Yeah, that's true. But I was like, this old man is gonna walk.
Walking.
Yeah, he's gonna walk all the way.
Like, it's at least a few days journey, if not like maybe a week journey. Like, I don't know. Apparently, he planned the
I would like
entire
to think he
thing.
made stops.
What's that?
I would like to think that he made stops, like inns or something.
Oh yeah, he must have. I just like the idea of it.
I mean, he certainly isn't traveling by cart.
Also, thing to note before we go into the next chapter, Frodo knows how much the ring meant to Bilbo, and also that it can turn you invisible. Like he knows this. It's not going to be new information when he later puts on the ring. It's like, oh my god, I'm invisible. He knows these bits of details, which I think the movie didn't really do justice to. Like, Bilbo told Frodo everything. And he knew that Bilbo kept the ring on his person at all times. Which is why he was so shocked that, oh my god, Bilbo left me the ring? What? He left me this ring out of everything?
Yeah.
Let's see. Interesting bit of Hobbit trivia. Apparently, in Hobbit law, you need 7 signatures of witnesses in red ink for it to be legal.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
for the will.
That was
Yeah, the will that they
hilarious.
double checked and they're like, oh, it's all there.
Just a little bit of thing. I just wrote that down thinking, well, that's cute. Let's see. Yes. Expect me when you see me, said Gandalf to Frodo. Like, thanks, Gandalf. Sure. When I see you, I'll expect you, I guess. Let me make out the tea for you.
I'm gonna start saying that to all of my friends every time I leave. Just be like, expect me when I'm here. Like,
Expect me when you
Yeah.
see me.
exactly.
One of my other questions I had. So Bilbo had arranged to stay in Rivendell at Elrond Half-Elven's house. Did you have to like pay money or anything to be there? Was Elrond just like, yeah, we have rooms available. Sure, let us set one aside for you. Like what sort of details or plans had to go into to make, I don't know, because he's like basically retiring in Rivendell.
I mean, I feel like they made it pretty obvious that he's well off. So if there was any form of payment, that probably was covered. But I think you're right. It would have been nice to have a little snippet of, to make these plans, XYZ had to happen, which I think would have been a nice touch.
I mean,
Yeah,
I-
they kind of just stay places sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and they're
Mhm.
like, yeah, even like, I'll have to reread this when we get to Bree, but I don't think there's ever a mention of them like paying for the room in Bree.
I think there is, wasn't it like gold or something? Like there was like or silver coins or something. But I think you're right. I'm not sure if it's specifically mentioned.
If it might be, I haven't read it in a while, so you could be completely right. But it is kind of interesting for them to just be like, "Yep, we're going to Rivendell. Hope they can, just house us."
I mean, also elves are literally immortal. So like, what are the what are the property rights for immortal beings? You know.
How long is this lease agreement?
That and also, like, did Bilbo even have to pay? Because like he did make friends with some of the elves along his journey during the Hobbit,
is
and
true.
he did do this
Oh,
great
right.
task,
he
great
was
deed.
he was called an elf friend. So. But does that is being an elf friend enough to get a free room at Rivendell for like a few years?
Depends on how high up his friendship goes, I guess.
Fair enough.
It's just I know obviously if Tolkien added in anything like that to the story, it would diminish it. So I'm glad he didn't. It's just interesting stuff to think up. All right, I think unless anybody has anything else to add, I would like to credit the wonderful people who lectures I listened to and took notes from. So I would like to credit Ted Sherman with his lecture discussing on J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring, as well as Carnegie Mellon University alumnus Michael D.C. Drought on his Lord of the Rings How to Read J.R.R. Tolkien. Those were two of the lectures that I referenced from. So props to those guys for being university people and interested in Tolkien. All right, I think we'll leave it at that. This was 2 hours. I thought we'd get maybe an hour, and they're double that time, so hell yeah. Not sure if we'll get the same length next time.
Oh, it's
But-
gonna keep getting up a bit. It's gonna keep going up, I promise.
It's gonna get longer.
Thank you, everybody who joined us today. Huge thank you to you guys who joined us in Discord. Jonathan Be Nice, Les Vistage, Ristifer, and Trash Kitty. All of you guys are more than welcome to join us next week, as well as anybody else in chat. You're more than welcome to join this Discord and hop on in the call if you want. Next week, we will be discussing Chapter 2, Shadows of the Past. So if you would like to join in on the discussion, please read that chapter before Sunday, same time, same place. And Panda Poopums, good question. Are you guys looking forward, or anything you guys are looking forward to in the next chapter? For those of you who know what's coming.
I don't know what's coming.
I also do not, so I'm just excited to read the chapter in general, especially now knowing that it's the oldest portion that's been written. I'm
That is
extremely
true.
excited to read it.
I guess I don't want to say because, well, I mean, you guys know what happens, right?
I know what
Yeah,
A
happened
general
in the
idea of what
story.
Okay.
happens, but
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
I'm
the whole
excited.
point.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for the time jump. We're going to have a huge time jump. Like 30
Yes.
years is going to pass. Frodo's going to go from a tween to a proper adult.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
Uh,
always wonder why they didn't do that in the movie.
Because with the movie you need like the pressure of time. If Frodo held
That's
on to the
true.
ring for like 30 years, you'd be like, what? Like you
Well,
would
Yeah.
no rush,
and
it's
also,
fine.
you'd have to age up the actors somehow, and
also true.
but you'd have to keep Frodo the same age, but all the other actors would have to age 30 years.
That's true.
I'm also excited to talk to Gandalf again because he's going to come back from an adventure
With his blue hat.
with his blue hat. Yes.
I'm not gonna let
Specifically
that down
blue
anymore.
hat.
Before I go to, I'd really like to thank you, Maple, for giving me the opportunity to read this book, because I did not have it before you generously gave it to me.
Of course.
Well, thank you.
Also, thank you for setting up these talks in general, because this is so much fun.
This
Oh,
is
it is.
really
this is
is.
literally
Thank you,
what I
Maple.
love to do. So the fact that
Maple's the
I
best.
oh, I've got this space. You guys are the best for joining me. I was so sure no one would be here, and I'd just be me talking about Lord of the Rings, and I would like, you know what? That's okay, because that's my favorite thing to do. So
It's like everyone in chat support Maple. If you do not follow, follow now.
Oh yeah.
all right, here's one last quote. Lord of the Rings, Bilbo. Yes, said Bilbo. I am very. Oh my god, I did get a follow. Thank you, Truth Decay. Aw. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Truth Decay. I hope you join us next week for more Lord of the Rings, Chapter 2, Electric Boogaloo, The Shadows of the Past.
Electric blue.
Yes, said Bilbo, I am very fond indeed of it, and all of the dear old Shire. But I think I need a holiday. That is a passage from this chapter we just had, A Long Expected Party. Oh yeah, did I make that connection, by the way? There's a very specific reason why this chapter is named A Long Expected Party. It's because the first chapter in The Hobbit is an unexpected party.
Oh.
Oh, I
Right.
love that.
So that's another way which the two books are bridged. And I just, brilliant, Professor, to the professor.
No, it's all to Maple, Professor Maple.
No, to the professor. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for not Lord of the Rings, but for more Zelda.
Oh, we'll see you then.
All right.
Lord of
And
the
we'll
Rings.
see you
Everyone.
guys next Sunday for Chapter 2. All right. Good night, everybody. I love you lots. Bye. All right. Chat. Heck. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Oh, you had fun lurking here. No worries, Secret of Weaves. I'm so glad you were here. I had, oh my god, a wonderful time. Let's thank everybody today. Again, I expected nobody to be here. I'm glad you're here, nerding out with me with Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite thing in the entire world ever. So I'm glad that I can share this with you. I want to thank a whole bunch of people today. I want to thank Truth Decay, Varric Bazinga, Sophia Hex, Jimo Kyo, and La Paulina, Queen Titty Twister, Secret Life of Weave, and Dream Was Taken. You guys, thank you guys so much for the follows. All of you. I appreciate you so much. And other huge thank you to Anonymous for the 2 gifted subscriptions. 1 gifted subscription to Jackie Did That Thing, and 1 to La Paulina. I'm glad you guys had fun. I can't wait for next week. And like I said earlier, I will see you guys tomorrow. Truth Decay! Thank you for the bits! Oh, you did not have to do that at all. So thank you. Oh, thank you for the 1,000 biddies. I appreciate that so much. Ah. All right. We're gonna go raid someone. You loved the reading? Oh, I'm so glad, Love Paulina. Then we'll see you next week. For more Lord of the Rings. All right, I need to figure out someone to raid. If you have any friends or family, please let me know. If they're streaming, and we can go raid them. Otherwise, I'm gonna just have a look at my suggestions for currently who is doing this stream thing. Also, if you have any suggestions, recommendations, tips, ideas, please let me know. I would love to hear them. My Discord is open. You can either send them in the Discord, you can send them to DMs, you can also DM me here. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to make this the best experience as possible. Again, thank you so much, Panda Poopums. Heckin' huge shout out to Panda Poopums for helping me this entire time. Being so heckin' helpful. Oh heck, that's Panamanian. Shout out to Panamanian too, but also shout out to shout out to Panda Poopums. And there's the link for the Discord, yes. Panda, thank you so much for all of your help in helping me not be so nervous and asking questions. That was wonderful. You appreciate, you deserve it, Panda Poopums. Alright, looks like we should raid Alice. We can go raid Alice. Hell yeah. Go raid Alice in Asgard. So yeah, guys, go check out everyone we had on here today, by the way. None of them had to be on here, but they decided that they were going to. So a shout out for Jonathan Be Nice. A shout out for Rash Kitty. A shout out for... A shout out for Les Vistage. And I don't... I'm not sure if Riss streams. Please let me know if they do, in which case I'll give her a shout out as well. Yeah, Christopher was our other lovely person joining us today. But I don't know if they stream or not. Could give them a shout out anyway. Yeah! Also check out Christopher. They were also streaming, just chatting. Go give love to all those wonderful people. Please follow them. Alright, let me go to the Twitch thing. And we're gonna go for a raid. I'd appreciate if you stuck around. And again, everybody, I can't believe you guys are here. So just, You are so sweet. You are so heckin' sweet. Alright. Let's go raid Alice in Asgard. She is lovely. Please give her all of your sweet love. Tell her we said hi. And that this was the Lord of the Rings stream. Make her walk to Moria with us. Make her walk to Mordor with us, yes. A long-expected raid, Panda Poopums, that's a good one. A long-expected raid, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do a long-expected raid. Alright, guys. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow for regular stream. Goodbye.